So, ladies and gentlemen, this morning, before we start our regular Sports File column, I want to say a big thank you to all my followers on YouTube, Facebook, and other social media. We just passed 20,000 page views from all my different podcast columns and the secrets of the damn column. So we'd like to say thank you to all supporters. 20,000 may not seem like a lot to many compared to the millions Taylor Swift is getting, but considering it's a free location, there's no, I don't take any money for it, there's no remuneration, no ads, I think it's pretty cool. So 20,000 in 4 months, keep it up, and you keep on listening and I'll keep on producing. But today we're going to talk about someone that's considered probably not only a legend of hockey, one of the most important athletes in New Brunswick history. Of course, we're going to talk about Danny Frederick Grant, also known as Dan Grant, also known as Danny Grant. And for a lot of people who weren't born until the 1980s, Danny Grant was possibly one of the most impressive and hardest working players that New Brunswick ever produced. Some people consider him top 10 in the history of New Brunswick for New Brunswick athletes, and I think that's a good respect level. Danny Grant was anything but an achiever. Every level of hockey he had, every game he played, he gave it his best, and he motivated his teammates, he motivated his fans, later became a coach in the Q and the CIS system, and he showed that intensity not only as a coach, teammate, player, volunteer now, a different motivator. Now, he played his youth hockey in Fredericton, but according to published reports, he felt that his career would be better suited elsewhere rather than the Maritimes, because at the time, this may sound weird, ladies and gentlemen, they had senior hockey, but they didn't have major junior like it is now. A lot of major junior teams in the Maritimes, including St. John and different places. But he decided to go out to Ontario to play for the Peterborough Petes of the OHA from 1962 to 1966. Now, at the time, the Peterborough Petes were considered one of the best development programs for young players in Canada, and as a rugged forward, he really fit in to the Petes system. His first campaign in 1963, he had 12 goals in 50 games with 21 points. Second season, 18 goals, 21 assists, 39 points. But by the third year, he really started to open out. He was on a 2-point-a-game pace, including 47 goals and 106 points in 64-65. Now, this is where the Montreal Canadiens basically took advantage of his talent and drafted him. And his last year with the Petes, he had one game in the AHL with the Quebec Aces, but with the Petes, he had 44 goals, 52 assists, and 96 points in 48 games. So at this time, we knew Danny Grant was a comer. He was known for his, not the best skater in the world, but a very physical skater, knew how to finish off a play, knew where the net was, like most Maritimers. We know where the net is. And by the 65-66 season, he did spend one game with the Habs in that big year. But as 67 came around, Montreal's big farm team at the time was the Houston Apollos besides the Voyageurs. And his first year with the Apollos, he had 22 goals, 28 assists, 50 points in 64 games, and a big playoff run with 8 points in 6 games. The next year he split time with the Apollos, and the big call-up came actually 67-68. Montreal had a bastion of up-and-coming talent, and he played enough games that year in the regular season and playoffs to get a Stanley Cup ring, and he was still, again, a rookie. He didn't pass the 25-game mark for rookie qualification, so he became a Stanley Cup winner even before his rookie season in the NHL. Now, by the time that the postseason ended, Montreal had to make a decision. There was many talented young players on the team. They had to make a decision, keep one and get rid of the other. And not say they got rid of Danny Grant, but they gave him an opportunity to play. And he was acquired by the Minnesota North Stars in the 68-69 season. And that year, I think it changed maritime hockey history, because it really put the Fredericton players and programs on the map, because Danny was a product of that. And in that year, he won the Calder Trophy with a very impressive campaign of 31 goals, 34 assists, and 65 points. Now, Danny in Minnesota was part of a very, very rugged team. Bill Goldsworthy, Parise, all these players. And he was considered the second face of the Stars behind that great Goldie, Bill Goldsworthy. And he had a great number of campaigns with the Stars, and even helped the Stars to come within 2 games of the Stanley Cup Finals in 1971 when they played Montreal, and again he extended to 6 games. Every year, though, Grant was getting 20, 25, 30 goals. And again, his style with the puck, his style of finishing off a play, he was sort of like the Steve Shutt of the Stars. As good as Shutt was in finishing off a play, Grant was that. And again, he was a leader. He wasn't the biggest player on the ice, 5'10", around 200 pounds, but he was a very upright player. You couldn't knock him off the puck. He knew where the net was, and he can finish off a play. He was comparable like to Danny Gare and even Cicerelli. Very, very concise movements in front of the net, and when you look twice, the puck was in. But get this, Minnesota basically in 1973-74 decided to make some changes, and he was traded to the Detroit Red Wings, and this is where his career kind of hit the next level. You have to remember, at the time, there wasn't many 50-goal scorers, and during the 74-75 season, it was considered like a head-scratching deal because Henry Bouchard, who was a longtime Detroit Red Wing, was traded to the Stars for Grant, and this was one of the most lopsided trades in NHL history. Why would anybody consider Henry Bouchard, a very marginal player, be equal compensation for the great Danny Grant? Now, that season, they put Grant on the same line with the superstar Marcel Dionne, and he became, get this, at the time he was only the 12th player in NHL history to score 50 goals. But on Dionne's line, you weren't making the playoffs, they were scoring a lot of goals, but it was a struggle for Detroit because their team was dealing with Montreal and the underleague teams, and he couldn't compete. But Grant, for a lot of people, he worked himself so hard. Every shift was energy. Every shift was dedication, and he started getting plagued by injuries, thigh injuries, and various what he called lower body injuries. And by his second and third and fourth season with Detroit, he ended up basically not doing as much as he could. His goal scoring totals were down. His game totals were down. And he was eventually passed on to the LA Kings, and he got back with the Marcel Dionne line mate there, with Dave Taylor as well, who played a number of shifts, and he was scoring a lot of points and goals in the games he did play. For example, 78, 41 goals, 41 games, 10 goals, 29 points, and 78, 79, 21 points, including 10 goals in 35 games. But he was so plagued by injuries, and the NHL campaigns he had played with, going back even to before he got the NHL with the Petes, he had a lot of mileage on him. Now, why Grant retired is an obvious, but we look at his final totals: 736 games, 534 points, 263 goals, 272 assists. But he was the unofficial Iron Man for the NHL for years. He managed to get this. He ran up a string of games. This is comparable to Cal Ripken because NHL is very hard. 566 straight games, but again, he was at every whistle. He was at every play. But the last time he played in the NHL on the Marcel Dionne line with Dave Taylor, it was kind of sad to see because if this was Danny Grant of 7 years before, he could have scored 60 goals. And I think the biggest regret for fans of Danny Grant, if he would have been healthy, he could have easily scored 350 goals. And who knows, if he had a couple of better campaigns, more playoff runs, beside the one in 71 and the Stanley Cup in 68, he could be in the Hall of Fame. But what's nice about Danny Grant, his achievements have been recognized for years, and we're going to go over a few of them because they're pretty impressive. He was selected to the OHA League's second All-Star team in 65. He was on a first All-Star team in 66. Of course, the Stanley Cup in 68, the Calder in 69. And he played in 3 consecutive All-Star games in the late 60s, early 70s. And of course, the great recognition for him was in 1985, being one of the most important inductees to the Brunswick Sports Hall of Fame. So he's been in the Hall of Fame in New Brunswick for 34 years, but his impact is still beyond and beyond. The young players coming up in the program from Dalhousie to St. John, university players benefited from his counsel, benefited from his efforts. He is a motivator on many levels. He's been a volunteer as well, like for many groups, including the TELUS Community Board. And his coaching career was limited, of course, to the University of New Brunswick, 95 and 96, head coach. And he coached the Halifax Mooseheads in 1998. Now, he did come back to be an AC for the STU Tommies in Fredericton 2002-2003. But we must say with Danny Grant, he not only put Fredericton on the map on a professional level, excuse me, he put it on a professional level. Fredericton had a great respect as a hockey town years before, but my dad's dear departed soul, he told me years ago maybe the reason why the Fredericton Canadians were established in Fredericton as a Montreal Canadiens affiliate, because they know that Danny Grant, that Fredericton was a Montreal Canadiens town, because Danny Grant was a big part of that last consecutive dynasty of the Habs from the mid-60s to the late 70s. Now Danny Grant, he shows up on various events as a presenter, as an honored guest. Him and Willie O'Ree and all these great New Brunswick-based hockey players. Danny Grant is a hero to so many people. You couldn't have enough words or explanations why he's a hero. It's just that he has given back. He has promoted the sport to every level. And, you know, as popular as people like Wayne Gretzky and Lafleur and Ray Bourque is, he's comparable to that. When he was playing, again, he was like a Steve Shutt, a Jacques Lemaire, Ciccarelli, these different players who knew where the net was. You look at, of course, Bossy and stuff like that. If he had maybe more skills in certain ways, he could have scored 70 goals. But I mean, he just had that style. If Grant had the puck, the goalies got nervous because something was going to happen. He was going to pass off or score. But I mean, I think of Danny Gare. I think of even Pat LaFontaine. You know, comparable skill. He had very, very much of a cerebral talent, and that's why a lot of people compare him from a cerebral hockey level to Dryden and Gretzky, because he was a cerebral player. Danny Grant is a very bright individual. If anybody's talked to, he's a tremendously interesting individual. And I'm very honored that people like, for example, some of the sports editors I've dealt with through the years, like Bill Donovan and Bruce Allahan and Bill Hunt, a great sports writer, you know, they've covered him on many levels. And, you know, he's still out there, he's still productive. And let me tell you, it's just a tremendous honor to do this podcast. But this is a specific, actually, dedication today to the DRHS alumni Condor program, and also the Okatavar Cyclones. There are many alumni have covered Condors and Cyclones, have gone on to being coaches. But then they were growing up. When I asked them, you know, kind of who their heroes were growing up, Danny Grant always came up in one way or another, because she was from New Brunswick. He made the sacrifices to make the NHL. And again, you know, Fredericton's not a big place compared to the rest of the world. 65,000 people. And you look at Matt Stairs and other people with success. Danny Grant is top 10, one of the best New Brunswick athletes of all time. Because everybody knows Danny Grant, because handsome guy, the women liked him, the kids liked him, the men liked him, they respected him. He was a lot of things to a lot of people. So on this post-storm day in Meductic, we're recording again at Cummings Brothers here, and thank you for the support to tape here, ladies and gentlemen. And if you basically would go on YouTube or different places, see all the beautiful Danny Grant hockey cards are out there. Very graceful. He's very handsome guy, good haircut. You know, he looked like more of a, you know, a talk show host like Jim Perry some days than a hockey player, but he should have maybe gotten the game shows. He would have done great. Anything he did touch the gold, or in this case, green, because of the North Stars. So, anyway, on this great day, we hope to find you this week. And don't forget, we have the collector show at the Florenceville Collectors Club is putting on something at the AYR Center Saturday, this Saturday in Woodstock. Starts at 10 o'clock. Coins, collectibles, cards, you name it, it's there. So everybody please patron. That's enough plugs this morning. And again, you are making these podcasts work. I love your requests, your likes, your comments. I'm getting less crazy comments because I'm doing less political commentary. But if you disagree with what I'm saying about sports, hey, go to it. I'm not the smartest tool in the shed, but at least I'm a tool in the shed. Have a good day. Bye.